Tonight, murder charges against three 16-year-olds are now being handled by Onondaga County Criminal Court as opposed to the more secretive family court.
Each indicted accused of murdering their 15-year-old friend in the back seat while intending to shoot out the window. News Channel 9's Andrew Donovan takes us into the courtroom where the young men are again facing serious charges.
This is the community's first chance to see the faces of the three 16-year-olds accused of murdering their 15-year-old friend. Onondaga County Court Judge Matt Doran permitting News Channel 9 to record the proceedings of Quintone Moore, Uzziah Murray, and Torrin Brown, each now indicted on charges of murder, criminal possession of a weapon, and criminal possession of stolen property. From a Hyundai Sonata, sources say stolen from Destiny USA, prosecutors allege the group was shooting toward people outside Parkside Commons apartments when the gunfire hit and killed a fourth teen in the group, 15-year-old Deron McGee, in the back seat of the car. His family said he was dropped off at his grandmother's house, dying.
Welcome back to Kingston Reviews. Derek here. Thank you guys for tuning into another video. I really appreciate it. So today I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about why these three young teens are probably going to spend the remainder of their teenage years and probably the better part of their 20s in the criminal justice system, and why I think this happened in the first place. So the reason why I think this happened is they're really deeply embedded in a garbage culture, which is perpetuated primarily by the American black community. And I'll go into the details of this further. But before we do that, I wanted to talk to you guys about something very similar to this that happens almost every year in our community where I live. So I actually live here in North Carolina in what I'd like to call a kind of rural / suburban area. We still have farms around us, but there's still a lot of homes and we have a lot of businesses, of course. And every single year, we have a lot of young folks just like this that they go around and they break into cars that are open. So if your car's open, they're gonna go in your driveway and kind of snatch and grab. They typically don't break your window. They don't want the alarm to go off, but every year they do this. And so what ends up happening inevitably is that these young folks are going around, they're breaking windows, they're stealing computers, guns, all this kind of stuff. The area that I live in, most of the homeowners like myself are armed, okay? We have multiple firearms in the house. We are going to defend our property, and inevitably what happens is a homeowner confronts them on the yard, and it doesn't go well for the young folks. And usually what happens is one of the teenagers will be shot, and the other teenagers will actually be arrested and charged with the homicide because they were in the commission of a felony. And this has happened in my area that I know of at least 5 to 6 times in the last 10 years. This exact same cycle. And why is this able to happen? Because they're part of a culture that perpetuates the value of free money, easy money, the fast lifestyle, and I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about that. So let's go ahead and talk about this for a little bit as far as why these teens ended up, what is garbage culture from my perspective. And to talk about this a little bit, I wanted to give a shout out to another channel. His name is Frederick Jean. I've watched a couple of his videos. In his videos, he talked about a Japanese friend mentioning to him that a lot of Japanese are afraid to talk to black folks because they consider black Americans as not being culturally lost or culturally homeless. And I wanted to go a little further than what he said in his video. I don't believe that they're culturally lost or culturally homeless. I actually think they have a culture. I think we create culture where there isn't any, and we also change culture over time. But I can tell you, being that I've been here in the States since the early 80s and really paying close attention, being a part of Black American culture, I can tell you the major difference between what he was saying about a homeless culture. I don't believe it's homeless or lack of culture. I believe that the culture is actually garbage. I actually believe that they believe in the counterculture to positive values, because simply it's better to believe in the opposite of what they consider to be their slave owners, right? They're fighting against the powers that be, and so they basically have to have a counterculture. So they're going to argue with you and say that any value that you say is a net positive value, they're simply going to say, well, that's just a white value, a Judeo-Christian value. Well, I don't think that's the case. I think that there is virtuous, there's good, and then there's evil, period. And I think it is not subjective but objective based on, of course, the God Almighty. I won't go into too much of that, but definitely I think there's good and bad and evil in the world, and you cannot kind of waver in between to suit what suits your needs, right?
Now to a crime alert. Two 12-year-olds shot while waiting for their school bus, and police say the person who pulled the trigger is only 16 years old. Local 10's Alex Finney is live in Northwest Miami-Dade with what led up to that shooting. Alex.
And Eden, it is so bizarre and it is so heartbreaking. These children were just waiting for the school bus to head to school. And also this as well, we just got an update from police. We have photos of the weapons that apparently this 16-year-old used, all because these kids refused to give up their cell phones. These are the guns that police say a 16-year-old used to shoot two children waiting for the school bus Thursday morning. One of the victim's mother told Local 10 off camera that she is hoping and praying that her son will be okay.
Individual 16 years old approached them with a firearm, demanding their property, and just began shooting at them for no reason.
The shooting occurred just before 8 a.m. in the area of Northwest 109th Street and 10th Avenue. A 16-year-old approached the two victims and demanded their cell phones. When they said no, he immediately began firing at them.
Okay, so one of the first things that I wanted to talk about was the rap social media part of the garbage culture that basically perpetuates some of these negative stereotypes. I remember back in the 90s, that kind of ages me, lets you guys know how old I am, but back in the 90s, I remember a lot of church groups smashing CDs. For you young folks, that's how we used to listen to music. We didn't listen to it via Wi-Fi, but we actually had a hard copy in our hands. And I remember folks saying like, hey, smash that 2 Live Crew music CD, that NWA, we don't need that. It's going to create these negative values in our community.
Images that degrade our dignity and are an insult to our children, our families, and communities concern us too. And that includes all this gangster rap and misogynist lyrics. Music that glorifies and promotes violence with guns, knives, or drugs, and denigrates and defames women. And with the release of Snoop Doggy Dogg's debut album, Doggy Style, that includes artwork that is nothing but pornographic smut.
I absolutely had to laugh at that. We got Snoop Doggy Dogg now. It's become basically such a common figure in our media today that we don't even think about how controversial his debut album was when it first came out, and how did we get from there to where we are today.
Brad, it's 95 degrees. I ain't got no nigga, and no nigga ain't got me. Let's go. I'm about to show my.
Yeah, if you guys remember that Virginia Slims commercial, we've come a long way, baby.
You've come a long way, baby.
Introducing new Virginia Slims, the Slim cigarette for women only, tailored for the feminine hand.
So I think this illustrates an excellent point that just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should. Just because you can't smoke doesn't mean that you should. It's not good for you. This is the same point I'm making about the rap social media culture, that it really is one of the most negative things for the black community in general. And I think it's a big component of why we're seeing so many problems, because they glorify the wrong things. How amazing it is from where we came with the original Snoop Dogg album to some of the most current music videos, and the fact that people emulate these behaviors now today and no one thinks a second thought. There's no one protesting. There's no one seeing the connection between the two, I just think is absolutely amazing. If you guys don't think stuff like that has an effect on how young people view themselves, their behavior, and what kind of culture and community you're creating, then you're absolutely crazy. That's pretty amazing to see the differences between 1990s and where we are today. And here we are 20 plus years later, and we're seeing that these values are not only being perpetuated by the music, but in fact, young folks feel like if they're not a part of this culture, then you're really not anything in the community, right? We're not perpetuating positive stereotypes like school and scholastics and virtuous behavior, but we're perpetuating hypersexuality, hyperviolence, hyper love of money. And I really wanted to talk to you guys about that for a minute. How did we get to the point where someone that's 16 years old would even think to rob a 12 or 13-year-old? And the only way that I can derive that is, number one, their home environment is probably pretty crappy. Kids being raised by kids, young folks having kids and raising future criminals. So that's a big part of it. But I also believe this kid gets most of his information in his environment from social media, from music videos. And if you watch music videos, which I actually don't watch anymore because they're just absolute trash, and I don't want to perpetuate any of that. But why is it that no one is really talking about this? It's almost as if no matter how negative the behavior, everyone basically says, well, we can't judge it. Well, I do believe you can actually judge a behavior as being negative or positive, and I base that upon the Bible. I base that upon what God says is good and bad. And I believe right now in this world, we just have so many people afraid to say that something is empirically good or something is empirically bad. We just gotta kind of sit in this middle ground, and that's why we've ended up in this place where young folks don't know what's good or bad, so they kind of go with what they see on social media, what they see in a music video. And yes, kids and young folks are that stupid, okay? That's why they're young folks. They're just not smart enough to make these decisions on their own. And if you're one of these people sitting back and saying, hey, I'm watching these music videos, they're popping, they're twerking, they've got the WAP.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to wet it. I let him, now he diabetic. I don't want to, I want to, I want to, I want you to touch that, that swing in the back of my.
Right? And you don't think that this is a net negative for people in general? Well, there's something wrong with you, right? That's not something wrong with me. There's something wrong with you. So I think I've given you guys a couple good points on how rap music videos, the social media has really had an effect. You see them emulating the same behaviors you see in these videos. You see them emulating them in real life. And it really reminded me of when my boys hit those teenage years and they wanted to listen to rap music, and they asked me about it, and I basically said they couldn't do it, that they weren't quite ready to go ahead and listen to that. And they would give me the same arguments that I've heard people talk about other genres like movies, right? Well, how comes you let me watch The Terminator, but you won't let me watch this? Well, the reality is that this kind of content affects people a little differently because it really works in the sexual content, the violence content, and it puts it in much more of a realistic way. Whereas the Terminator is a movie. People don't go out and pretend to be the Terminator, but when they see a video like that, they want to emulate that human behavior. I don't know whether it's because of the music or not, but it is just the reality of it. And especially at those tender ages, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, they're really just not ready to just have a free reign on watching stuff like that. And so I really tried to limit their content when it came to that. And I also let them realize that some of their friends and counterparts, when they see those music videos, obviously I look at that as entertainment, But depending on the family environment that you came from and the kind of morals and values that you've been taught, you might actually take that music video and go, oh, that's totally acceptable. I can go ahead and do that. And so people take things differently depending on the social environment that they come from and the culture that they come from. And unfortunately for Black culture here in the United States, they really adopt this. They just say, oh, I see that in the video, so I want to pop it and drop it, and I want to, I want to be on social media flashing money and being just like all my other friends are doing and the music videos that I'm seeing. So I do think it has an effect. If you don't believe it, let me know. Put it in the comments. But that's what I'm seeing. And if you guys see something different, let me know. Okay, so I think I've made a pretty good point about the rap social media presence that basically has integrated its way into the Black community, giving them values that are absolutely terrible. Money, sex, violence. And I really think that's pretty self-evident. I don't want to spend a lot of time on that. But the next thing that I think is probably the biggest cause of the garbage culture that proliferates the Black community is the destruction of the family unit.
Are you tired of your man? Tired of paying bills? Tired of feeling like you're his mama? Call our new hotline now. It's only 2 cents per minute. So don't miss this opportunity to boss your life up, ladies. Fuck those brokies.
It's absolute destruction and obliteration, I should say, of the family unit. The mom, the dad, the single mom syndrome is what I like to call it, of the Black community. So many young men and young women are being raised in a household with only one person having all the input. Now, I'm here to tell you that I was raised by my mom, and my dad was there. They did get divorced, but my dad was always a part of the picture. But I do have a stepmom as well, and I can tell you that both my mom and my stepmom were absolutely two fabulous women, very strong, very motivated, very value-oriented. And so there are good mothers out there. But what I'm saying is, over the preponderance of evidence, over a statistical majority, if you take out the husband out of the family, if you take out that father figure completely out of the family, and you have one person trying to provide all the values, all the resources to a family, you're basically leaving that kid to be raised by the public school system, number one, and being raised by the social media, which we just talked about, right? The music, social media, their friend groups. And you're lucky if you end up with just some of the things that I've showed you earlier, because the kids don't have anybody to really reflect on and say, hey, this is how I want to be led. Kids have to be led, and you have to have a standard and a value system. And unfortunately, a lot of mothers are doing the very best they can, but they really don't have the structure that they used to in the past, where you had a mom, a dad, we go to church on the weekends. We have this structure and value system that we don't only say we live by, but we absolutely live by. And there's shame brought upon the family if you are not living that way. If you're not working, if you're having sex too early, there is shame. Unfortunately, in today's world, there isn't any wrong. There's nothing wrong with a single mom. There's nothing wrong if someone had sex when they're 14. It's nothing wrong if they robbed a little liquor store or something like that. Basically, we are afraid to say anything's wrong, especially in the Black community, and we want to make all these excuses and saying why it happened. Well, I really just don't care, okay? At the end of the day, we have virtuous good behavior and bad behavior, and I think by the time you become a young adult, you really understand that there's good and bad, and you simply are actively choosing to do bad, and that's where the problem is. Now, I can actually hear all the excuses about, white people do the same things, Hispanic people do the same things, institutional racism, why are you always talking about that? But at the end of the day, nobody really cares.
Fuck your excuses. Fuck them. Fuck them to pieces. Every last one of your measly ass fucking excuse.
Okay? I'm here to tell you that the country has over 300 million people. We're all very busy doing what's best for our families, for our communities, for the people that we care about and value. And at the end of the day, no one's going to care about these three guys when they're in prison, okay? They're going to get out and go back, get out and go back, and nobody is going to care but themselves and their families. Those are the only people that can make any change for their lives. So I'm here to tell you, go ahead and come up with your excuses. Go ahead and put them in the comments below why they did this, why it's not their fault, why the culture isn't garbage. That's absolutely fine. But at the end of the day, I'm telling you that there's objectively good and objectively evil things. And the things that these folks are doing and perpetuating are evil, and they need to be called out. If you guys like content like this, don't forget to like. Get in my comments. Let me know what you guys think. If you think the culture isn't garbage, let me know. I think you're dead wrong. But if you agree, please let me know in the comments as well below. I really appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you for all the subscribers. We're up to almost 1,300. So keep subscribing, keep commenting. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.